Spine-chilling haunted cabins, 7 terrifying paranormal secrets revealed in Mazamitla Woods. Lena gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white against the dark leather. The winding road sliced through the towering pines, their branches clawing at the sky, as if warning her to turn back. She heard the whispers, the warnings of those who dared to spend time in these woods. But she pushed forward, drawn to the quaint charm of the town ahead. A fresh start for her and her children Mia and Noah. A place to heal. Yet, deep down, an unsettling shudder lingered, the kind that made her heart race just a little faster. The town felt oddly alive, with locals flashing smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Lena forced a smile back, unsure of the friendliness that clung to the air like mist. Soon, they arrived at the rustic cabin, a charming facade hidden among the trees. Its weathered wood and cracked windowpanes held a strange beauty, yet the surrounding darkness loomed, thick and menacing. The air buzzed with secrets as Lena guided her children inside, hoping to drown their past in nature's embrace. As night fell, the world outside was consumed in shadows. Lena tucked Mia and Noah into their beds, exhaustion pulling at her as she settled in for the night. But just as she began to drift off, Mia's soft voice cut through the silence. "Mommy, I heard whispers from the walls." Lena's heart plummeted. She dismissed it, attributing it to imagination, but as she lay there, an icy breeze brushed past her skin, sending a shiver down her spine. The next morning, Lena stumbled upon an old, worn journal lodged between the cabin's floorboards. Each page bristled with unease, recounting unsettling tales of families who had vanished into the woods. Her breath caught in her throat as she read about eerie shadows that twisted around cabin corners and voices that lured children outside at night. It felt too off to be true. A folklore for a worn-down rental, a part of her tried to reassure herself. Yet, the forest outside seemed to hold its breath. Days passed, but disturbing nights became a pattern. The children whispered to each other as if possessed by some unseen force. Every night, hollow knocks echoed through the cabin, and Lena's heart raced. "Mommy!" Mia's terrified cries pierced the air, her eyes wide with fear. The familiar faces in town turned distant, their smiles morphing into grimaces of warning. Each evening, they glanced instead into the gloom surrounding the cabin, like they knew a truth they weren't ready to share. Then came the dreaded call from a neighbor, a frantic voice warning her of dark figures stalking families like them. Lena's courage faltered as she scanned the dark woods that now felt like a living entity, breathing just beyond her cabin walls. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The wind picked up, howls mingling with the cries echoing in Lena's head. Shadows flickered, glimpses of movement outside, taunting her. She turned to the children, fear electrifying her bones. "Stay close." As the darkness crept in, the whispers grew, an anguished symphony clawing through the walls. Lena felt the weight of her choices settling over her. Could the real horror lie not just in the woods, but in the very community she thought she could trust? Just then, figures materialized at the window, shambling forward like scant shadows of the past. Lena froze, her heart hammering. As fear clawed within her, she realized the stories might not just be tales after all. Would they have to pay a blood price for their refuge? A surge of panic gripped her. But what if the threat was closer than she imagined? What if the real monsters were wearing friendly faces? Lena's breath hitched. The silhouettes loomed closer, long fingers stretching, aching to break through the glass. She turned her back to the window, forcing herself to face Mia and Noah. "We need to hide," she said, her voice shaking. The children stared up at her, their eyes wide with fear, and for a moment, Lena felt something shift inside her, an instinct to protect. to shield them from the creeping dread that had woven itself into their lives. She rushed the kids to the closet, stuffing them inside before shutting the door, leaving only a crack for them to see her. "I'll be right here," she whispered, but her words felt hollow. She pressed her ear against the wooden frame, listening for the faintest sign of movement outside. What she heard sent a chill through her entire body. Low murmurs mixed with guttural laughs echoed through the clearing. The voices playfully taunted, their cadence eerily soothing yet disconcerting. Come out, little ones," they sang, the tone dripping with malice. Lena knew she couldn't let them take her children. Not again. With courage she didn't quite feel, Lena peered through a crack in the door. The figures were close now, shadows with no distinct features but an overwhelming sense of hunger swirling around them. One figure stepped into the moonlight, revealing a face too familiar yet twisted with an unsettling grin. It was the lady from the market, the one who had smiled at her with those unsettling eyes. But this wasn't the same woman. Whoever or whatever stood before her had been corrupted by the darkness of the woods. Lena stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest. The shadows beyond the cabin seemed to pulse and throb, alive with malevolence. She needed a plan. If she could just make it to the car, her thoughts raced, each alarmingly clear step forming a fragile salvation. Get the kids, grab the keys, and run. Lena crouched down, the floor creaking slightly beneath her, the oppressive silence wrapping around her as she took a breath and opened the closet door. "Kids, we have to be really quiet," she murmured, ushering them out. Mia clutched onto Noah, who trembled visibly. "Mommy, I don't want to go out there," Mia whispered as they tiptoed toward the front door. Lena's heart swelled with fear. She bent down to whisper in their ears, "We have to. I'll keep you safe." The severity in her tone seemed to anchor them, and together, they reached the door. As Lena turned the knob, cold metal met her warm palm and her heart raced. She opened the door just a crack, and the night air poured in, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something far more sinister. The laughter outside echoed softly, conspiratorial, as if it were waiting for a moment of vulnerability to sharpen its claws. Suddenly, the door handle shook violently, and the voices intensified, "Let us in." They begged, sweetly, like children crying out for their mother, and that familiarity struck fear deep within Lena's chest. "No!" she shouted, yanking the door open wider and stepping out into the night with her children still beside her. The shadows shrieked, retreating momentarily. "Run!" Lena yelled, as they sprinted toward the car, adrenaline coursing through her. The night felt alive, hands reaching out from the trees, trying to claw them back. The cabin loomed behind them, a grinning maw. They reached the car, and Lena fumbled with the keys, her hands trembling. The voices wailed from the woods, closer now, mixing with the hard breaths of her children. Would they make it? Could the shadows hear their hearts racing? Just as the engine roared to life, she looked back at the cabin. It seemed to pulse, a heartbeat in the dark, and for a split second, she could have sworn she saw faces in the windows, eyes wide and pleading or hungry. "Mommy, please!" Noah cried, and she snapped her head forward, the weight of her decision crashing down on her. As they tore away from the cabin, the laughter transformed into something awful echoing through the trees, promising that this wasn't over. "Where do we go now?" Mia asked, her small voice trembling in the back seat. Lena gripped the steering wheel tighter, the road ahead winding deeper into the woods, shadows dancing at the edges. The town's comforting glow faded behind them, swallowed by the dark. "Somewhere safe," she whispered, but doubt clawed at her throat. As the headlights flicked across the road, illuminating the twisted trees, she knew one thing: whatever fate awaited them, the true terror was just beginning. The car bounced over the rough terrain, every jolt echoed through Lena's chest. The hum of the engine filled the silence, but every now and then, a whisper from the trees flitted into the air, chilling her blood. The shadows pressed in closer, an unseen mass that felt impossibly alive, hungry for their fear. "Mommy, where are we going?" Noah's voice was small, a tiny tremor that broke through the heavy dread. "Just hold on." She swallowed, teeth clenched, desperately scanning the road ahead. The moon cast an eerie glow over the landscape, illuminating the twisted trunks of the trees, branches like clawing fingers reaching out towards them. She flicked the headlights to high beam, piercing the dark, but the deeper woods held a swirl of shadows. Lena's heart raced, pumping adrenaline through her like fire, but the darkness didn't let up. As they pressed deeper, the road grew more treacherous, the thick canopy of leaves above fluttering ominously. With every passing minute, the sense of something watching intensified, the feeling of being a hunted animal. Lena stole glances in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the shadows chasing them, hungry specters rising from the depths of the forest. "Mia, can you see anything back there?" she asked, her voice strained. Mia leaned forward, her small face pale, eyes wide. "I don't know," she stuttered, searching the empty road. "It's so dark." Lena's stomach churned. Another minute passed, and with it, her resolve began to fray. She felt a primal fear clawing at her sanity, then a low howl pierced the stillness, filled with sorrow and rage. It sent chills cascading down Lena's spine. "What was that?" Mia's voice trembled. "Just keep quiet," Lena said, her eyes darting. The trees loomed ever closer, tight around them, as if they were encroaching on their very existence. The howling morphed into laughter. The same laughter from outside the cabin, the taunting melody now ringing clear, echoing through the stillness. Lena gripped the wheel tighter, the serrated edges of fear mingling with anger. "Stay in your seats," she commanded. Then, as if the woods had slipped into madness, a figure darted across the road. It was quick, just a blur, but she caught sight of twisted limbs and eyes that glimmered with that insatiable hunger. Lena slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt. What was that?" Noah cried, clutching Mia tightly. "I don't know, but we can't stop," she yelled, fear pouring into her voice now. But she stared ahead, adrenaline coursing through her veins. They had to keep moving. She pressed her foot down, hearing the engine roar back to life, but the laughter lingered, clawing at her ears. The shadows danced across the road, and the branches seemed to close in on them tighter, every moment laced with a sense of something lurking just beyond the reach of the headlights. "Everything will be okay," she whispered to herself more than anyone else, hoping the words could shield them from the encroaching dark. But as the road began to twist and turn, the trees thickened again, and the laughter grew louder, drowning out everything else. The whispers carried urgent tones, too close for comfort, a cacophony of mockery that twisted at Lena's mind. The car jolted, a sudden thud as something smashed against the side. She braced for impact. The air grew heavy, dread seeping into her bones. "What was that?" Mia yelped, fear evident in her tiny voice. "I don't know," Lena shouted, panic surging. She glanced at the rearview mirror and for a brief moment, her heart dropped. In the distance, flickering like fireflies, were souls gathered beneath the trees. Their eyes glowed, expressions frozen in twisted joy. They were following them, chasing them. "Faster!" Noah screamed. A sense of desperation filled her, urging her to speed up, to escape the gathering storm. But she felt it then, a cold resignation wrapping around her. The shadows were no longer just outside. They were inside her mind, whispering that they would never truly escape this nightmare. As the headlights flickered, the laughter crescendoed into a maddened symphony of discord, promising that this encounter was just the beginning. "Mommy, I'm scared," Mia's voice wobbled. "I know," Lena replied, a shiver running down her spine. "But we have to keep going." Ahead, darkness loomed larger. It wasn't he leading them to safety. What lay ahead would reveal a truth darker than they anticipated. But what Lena couldn't fathom was that as they raced into the heart of the woods, trusting their speed to save them, the real terror was waiting just beyond the next bend. The bend rushed upon them, a sudden curve hidden in the shadows. Lena's foot slammed down on the accelerator, desperate to break free from the stifling grip of the trees. But the road transformed into a downhill plunge, sending them barreling towards an unknown abyss. Panic rose in her throat as the headlights danced wildly, illuminating grotesque shapes that flickered back into darkness as quickly as they appeared. "Mommy!" Noah wailed, his voice cracking. She glanced at him, saw fear etched deep in his young face. The reflection of the moonlight caught a glint of something in Mia's eyes, too understanding mingled with terror, as if she sensed what lay beyond the creeping shadows. Then came the sound, soft at first, a rustling in the leaves, but rapidly escalating into an ominous rustle that rippled through the forest like a wave. Lena's heart thundered in her chest. The silence of the woods had morphed into an unsettling symphony, a chorus of twisted laughter intertwined with the whispers that clawed at her sanity. "Look!" Mia shrieked, pointing ahead. Lena followed her gaze and froze. There, at the edge of the road, stood a cabin. Twisted and worn, it lurked just beyond the tree-lean, front porch sagging like an old beast waiting for its prey. Windows are shattered, gaping like hungry mouths, blackened with soot. It looked alive, brimming with a malevolence that made her skin crawl. "The cabin, should we stop?" Noah asked, his small voice trembling. "No!" Lena shouted, turning away from it, but her decision hung heavy in the air. They had to get away, but a sick curiosity constricted her gut. It felt as though the cabin was pulling them closer, singing an eerie lullaby that wrapped around their senses. "Mommy," Mia whispered again, her voice barely above a breath. "It feels like it wants us to come in." Lena shook her head, but the laughter returned with a vengeance, louder and more urgent than ever. Branches scratching against the car roof sounded like fingers trying to claw their way inside. The headlights dimmed, flickered, and for a moment, everything went dark. "Mommy!" came Noah's cry, panic rising. Lena swerved, grasping the steering wheel as adrenaline surged through her. She pressed down harder, the engine howling in protest, desperate to grasp escape. The shadows, however, were relentless. The cabin loomed larger now, as if it was the only thing anchoring reality. "Mommy, my head hurts." Mia whimpered, clutching her temples as if they were being squeezed by invisible hands. "Just a little longer," Lena urged, fighting back unease. She could almost feel the cabin's eyes upon them, studying their fear, savoring it. As they shot past it, she risked a glance. The door swung open, creaking on rusty hinges. A silhouette appeared, tall and unnatural, silhouetted against the sickly glow of the moon. "Turn back," it seemed to whisper, voice twisted, barely human. Lena's heart seized a pounding echo that felt as though it would explode. She questioned the reality of what she had seen as she pressed forward, fear tightening her throat. The laughter swelled, distorting all reason, filling the air with a malicious energy, and then the road opened up again, yet a different kind of darkness yawned before them, an expanse of unmarked territory, the trees thinning like wet ink spattered on a canvas. Lena veered left, thinking it would take them out, but the moment she did, the car came to a grinding halt. "We're stuck," Noah shouted, panic rising in his voice like bile. "No!" Lena snarled, fiddling with the steering wheel, but to no avail. The engine sputtered and died. It was as if the forest had conspired to end their flight. Outside, the laughter returned, echoing like a twisted lullaby through the chilling night air. Shadows began to creep toward them, obsidian and hungry, probing at the car like desperate hands. "Mia, Noah, stay low," Lena yelled. Suddenly, the laughter morphed into a dreadful growl, reverberating through the car. The darkness pressed against them, insistent and cold. Lena's heart raced again as she felt the weight of the eyes watching, morphing the forest into a living nightmare around them. "Mommy!" Mia screamed, her tiny hands trembling, but it wasn't just Mia's scream that echoed now. From the shadows emerged more figures, twisting shapes with glistening eyes, closing in around them like a sickening tide. The darkness had arrived, embracing their fears and drawing closer, waiting for a decision, and in that moment, Lena realized, they had nowhere left to run. Wherever they were headed now, it might be the ultimate revelation or their doom. The weight of dread hung thick in the air, pressing down on Lena. She gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale, as darkness wrapped itself around the car like a suffocating blanket. The engine lay quiet, defeated, and the twisted laughter danced around them, a malevolent melody echoing through the trees. "Mommy, I don't want to be here." Noah's voice trembled, his body curling inwards, seeking safety from the unseen monsters outside. Lena's voice cracked, her attempt to reassure them was swallowed by the encroaching noise. She couldn't see beyond the glass, but she felt them eyes, hungry and waiting. "Breathe," she thought. "Just breathe," but the laughter morphed into something deeper, a low growl that vibrated through her bones. Like something alive, pulsating. Lena shot a glance at her children, their wide eyes glistening with unshed tears, reflecting her own horror. The shadows pressed close, tentacles of darkness weaving through the trees, inching toward them. We need to get out," she stammered, even as her instincts screamed to hide. But where could they go? Cautiously, she turned to the windshield, peering into the night. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Shapes darted in and out of her vision, figures moving with unnatural grace between the trunks. Lena blinked, but they were gone. Was it her mind playing tricks? Or were they real? "Mia, can you see anything?" she whispered, knowing full well what the answer might be. With a timid shake of her head, Mia clutched Noah's arm. "I'm scared, Mommy." Lena swallowed hard. "I know, baby. Just stay close." She reached behind her seat, her fingers brushing against the metal of a tire iron, an odd comfort in a moment like this. Suddenly, the car jolted, a loud thud reverberating through the cabin. The children screamed, and Lena's heart dropped. What was that? She peered out the window again, bracing herself. Dark figures loomed closer, a gathering of shadowy forms, their features obscured but their intentions dripping with malice. And then she saw it, a face, twisted and pale, peering in. Its mouth smiled wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth, glistening with some unholy light. Panic gripped her. "Get down!" Lena shouted, pushing her kids to the floor, her own breath coming in frantic gasps. The shadow outside moved with terrifying speed, a monstrous arm reaching for the car door handle. The metal creaked as Lena, in a wild panic, shoved the tire iron against the window. "Stay back!" she screamed. An eerie silence fell as the creature halted, observing her with unblinking, soulless eyes. Time felt suspended. Lena's heart raced. What did it want? What did they want? Then, just when she thought the creature would retaliate, it pulled back, vanishing into the void like a shadow in the dark. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. The laughter returned, now resounding, a cacophony of voices twisting her name. "Lena, come play with us." It echoed like a cruel taunt, reminding her of their helplessness. "No!" she shouted into the growing blackness, but the shadows seemed to laugh harder, a cruel and mocking sound that sent shivers down her spine. "Mommy, make it stop!" Noah cried, his small voice barely rising above the dreadful chorus. Lena's pulse pounded in her ears as she fought against the sense of despair creeping in. They couldn't just stay here. They had to escape, whatever that would take. Taking a deep breath, she steadied her resolve. "Okay, kids. We're going to open the door and run to the cabin, got it? We have to stick together no matter what." Mia nodded, fear still prominent in her wide eyes, and Noah gripped Mia's hand tightly, as if he could shield her from whatever horrors awaited. "On 3, Lena whispered, glancing out again. 1. 2. The shadows danced more wildly around them, laughter growing louder, a dark celebration of their impending doom. 3. As she flung open the door, a cold wind swept in, a rush of icy fingers brushing against her skin. The world beyond was alive with whispers and shadows, beckoning them forward into the waiting abyss, and in that moment, Lena thought of only one thing: the cabin. Perhaps it held secrets they must uncover, or their final refuge. Regardless, an inescapable pull drove them toward it, a heartbeat at the forefront of every decision. "Run!" she shouted, and they bolted into the night's embrace, not knowing what awaited. As they fled, the laughter faded into the depths of the woods, the cabin looming closer, and Lena knew one truth: there would be no turning back now. What horrors, what revelations awaited them when they reached the cabin? Time was running out, and the shadows were closing in. Their feet pounded against the damp earth, each step squelching in the mud as they forged ahead through the thicket. Lena's breath came in sharp gasps, mingling with the unsettling rustle of leaves overhead. The trees loomed like dark sentinels, their twisted branches reaching for her, claw-like and desperate. "Faster! Don't look back!" she urged, but the children's whimpers cut through the night, each cry digging deeper into her heart. Noah stumbled, and Lena shot her hand back to steady him, urging him on. "Mommy! The shadows!" Mia squealed, pointing, her voice rising in pitch. Lena cast a glance behind them. The darkness churned, swirling in a way that felt almost alive. The silhouettes of creatures melted and reshaped themselves, an endless dance of horror. They weren't far behind. "Keep going!" she shouted, adrenaline igniting her muscles. The cabin drew closer, its shadowy silhouette nestled among the trees, an oasis of potential safety in a flood of terror. Just as they neared the porch, something lunged out of the underbrush, a mass of darkness with glowing eyes, hot breath washing over them like a wave of dread. Lena inhaled sharply, instinct screaming at her to turn and flee. But her feet moved of their own accord, propelled by sheer will. "Inside, now!" Lena pushed the kids ahead, slamming into the door with her shoulder. It creaked as it swung open, an invitation that felt more like a challenge. They stumbled into the cabin, trapping themselves within those four walls. The interior smelled of mildew and rotten wood, the air thick and stale. It was dark, too dark. Lena fumbled for a light switch, her hands shaking. Finally, the faint flicker of bulb light emerged, sputtering like their waning hope. "Noah, Mia, stay close," she whispered, fear amplifying her voice. They clung to her, looking around in wide-eyed terror as shadows darted just beyond the reach of the weak light. Lena's gaze fell upon the dusty furniture, the remnants of lives long gone. A fireplace stood cold and empty, ash covering the stone like a shroud. It should have felt like sanctuary, but instead, it loomed heavy with the knowledge that escape had grown more complicated. Then, the floorboards creaked. Just once. Lena froze, her heart threatening to break free from her chest. A slow, deliberate footstep echoed in the silence, rattling her already jangled nerves. "What was that?" she breathed, instinctively drawing her children closer. "Mommy, I want to go home," Noah whispered, his voice trembling against the stillness. "Shoo," Lena hissed, holding her breath. She scanned the room, her focus sharpening, every creak of the cabin now amplified in the stifling quiet. Another step. Closer this time. Again, she looked towards the entrance. It loomed dark and empty, yet she felt an unshakable sensation, the presence of something, or someone, hovering on the threshold, watching them with bated breath. With trembling hands, Lena reached for the tire iron again. "We need to barricade the door," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But just as she turned, a gust of wind howled through a cracked window, extinguishing the weak light and plunging them into absolute darkness. A sound sliced through the stillness, a sinister, low growl, vibrating through the walls of the cabin as dread washed over her. Lena, it was a voice, not the children's but deeper, more sinister, echoing from somewhere inside the chaos. "Come play." Lena's heart skipped. "No." Fear paralyzed her as the darkness began to creep in, wrapping around her thoughts like a vice. "Mommy!" Mia screamed, her cry filtering through the thick black void, and Lena felt the shadows coiling, tightening, threatening to rip them apart. "What do you want from us?" Lena shouted into the dark, desperation clawing at her. Silence answered. And just when she thought calm had settled, the laughter erupted again, but it was muffled. Deeper it came from inside the walls. The cabin trembled, as if it were alive, and suddenly, the truth knifed through her mind: this place held secrets. Dark, twisted secrets. Noah. Mia. Get to the back. She commanded, pushing them toward a dim corridor that disappeared into an even thicker blackness. She followed, pulse racing, the wind's haunting whispers echoing in her ears. As they moved deeper into the cabin, Lena clutched the tire iron, the oppressive shadows pressing closer. Whatever was hunting them was not just outside, it was here. What lay at the end of this dark passage? And would they be able to find the truth, or would the cabin consume them? The air thickened, and she felt the answer slide ever closer, colder than the chill in her bones. The corridor seemed to stretch on forever, a tunnel swallowed by shadows. Lena pressed the tire iron tightly against her side, knuckles white with fear. Every footfall echoed like a drum, declaring their presence to whatever lurked in the dark depths. The oppressive silence was nearly unbearable, the only sound being the quickened breaths of her children. Mia was clinging to her skirt, while Noah stumbled behind, his small frame silhouetted against the faint light creeping from ahead. The shadows danced on the walls, morphing into grotesque figures. Lena's gut churned with a dreadful certainty. They were not alone. "Mommy, I can't see." Mia whimpered, voice tight with panic. "Just a little further," Lena whispered, throat dry, heart hammering. "Stay close." As they approached an archway, a flicker of light emerged from the end of the corridor. It flickered like a dying star, casting distorted shapes along the walls. Relief and dread battled within her. Was it a way out? Or a trap set by the very horrors they fled? "Please, Mommy." Noah's voice was frantic now, laced with tremors. Just as they reached the archway, the light surged. It illuminated an old living room, cramped and filled with mismatched furniture that seemed to leer at them. Dust motes floated in the still air like trapped spirits. But what caught her eye was the enormous mirror hanging on the far wall, its surface cracked and darkened with age. Lena stepped inside, declining the urge to look behind her. Behind the mirror's warped glass, she caught fleeting glimpses, shadows moving where no body stood, the flicker of familiar faces twisted in silent screams. She gasped, stumbling back, her world tilting wrong. "Mommy!" Mia cried, her tiny fingers now gripped tightly around Lena's leg. "Don't look!" Lena shouted, panic surging. But it was too late, curiosity tugged at them. They all turned, transfixed by the dark reflection, as though it was a doorway to an unseen world. The shadows inside whispered, their voices a haunting chorus. "Play with us, join us." Lena felt a chill worm its way into her bones. There was something profoundly wrong about the reflections. Some were not merely distorted but were twisted versions of the children's faces, smiling back as if in mockery. "Noah, Mia, turn away." She grabbed for them, brushing against the worn fabric of Mia's jacket. But as Lena tugged them back, a cold wind rushed through the room, whispering secrets of despair, drawing her back toward the mirror. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the sinister promises. "We need to leave." But as she opened her eyes again, the reality had shifted. The cabin groaned around them, wood splitting. From the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow dart across the room, fast, too fast. A figure emerged, indistinct but menacing, shrouded in darkness. It called out in that same taunting voice, "Don't run, Lena, play with us." Her breath caught, panic constricting her throat. "Run, kids!" she yelled, shoving them back toward the corridor, adrenaline surging as the figure took a step forward. It resembled a creature carved from despair, its form flickering like an old film reel. They turned and bolted, but Lena's mind raced. Each heartbeat pulsed with dread, memories of faces in the mirror seared into her mind. They had to escape now. Whatever haunted the cabin was growing impatient, claws slashing through the air like dark whispers. "Faster!" she shouted, leading the way back through the corridor, the weight of the shadow looming ever closer behind them. Lena barely registered the back door that had appeared in her frantic rush. But they were not free yet. A muffled laughter echoed, chilling her spine, and the walls seemed to close in. Did the cabin want them to stay? Was it alive, sentient? And would it ever let them go? As the door swung open, a chilling gust greeted them, filled with the echoing laughter of the figures. What awaited them outside? An escape from the horrors, or a plunge into greater darkness? The answer loomed before them, as uncertain as the shadows overtaking the cabin. The frigid air hit them like a slap, rushing out of the cabin as if it had a life of its own. Lena stumbled through the door with Mia and Noah close behind her, heart racing. The wilderness loomed before them, dense trees shrouded in mist, branches stretching out like skeletal fingers grasping for them. "Mommy, what's happening?" Mia's voice quivered, her grip tightening on Lena's hand. "Just keep running." Lena barely recognized her own voice, pushing her children forward into the yawning darkness outside. They darted into the woods, feet pounding against the uneven ground. Shadows shifted among the trees, twisting reality like the creatures they had just escaped. The laughter still echoed in her head, that haunting taunt brushing against her ears. The trees whispered secrets, rustling leaves forming words. "Join us, stay forever." "Mommy, I can't." Noah cried out, stumbling over an unseen root. Lena reached back quickly, catching him before he fell. "Come on, baby, we have to go." She wanted to scream, to drive away that nagging feeling that something was watching them, waiting. The shadows of the cabin receded, turned into the darkness of the woods, but an all-consuming terror had replaced them. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled from the depths of the trees. Nearer than she could bear, it sent a jolt of adrenaline through her veins. What was in there? Whatever it was, it had grown impatient. "Mommy, I want to go home." Mia pleaded, tears glistening in her wide eyes. "Me too, sweetheart. But right now, we need to be brave," Lena whispered, heart pounding louder than her feet can carry them away from the growl. They huddled closer together, drawing strength from one another. Then, a beam of moonlight broke through the canopy, illuminating something glimmering in the distance. Lena's breath hitched. A clearing straight ahead showed what looked like an old playground, rusty swings swaying gently without a breeze. "Look," she said, forcing hope into her voice as she pointed. "We can hide there." Caution battled with desperation as they approached the clearing. For a moment, the quiet of the night enveloped them, restoring the illusion of safety. But it was short-lived. The giggling returned, crystalline and discordant, like broken chimes in the wind. Lena turned her head, scanning the tree-line, her heart thumping louder. They were being drawn in, and with each step closer to the playground, the laughter grew. "Play with us." The voices crescendoed, mingling with the wind, beckoning them toward the rusting slides and swings. "No!" Lena yelled, her pulse racing. "We're not playing. We need to hide." But as they reached the swings, she felt a pull. Her feet seemed to sink into the ground, roots curling like fingers around her ankles. She yanked her children away just in time, the bonds of the playground attempting to claim them. "Mommy, what's happening?" Noah's face paled as he struggled against the grip of unseen hands. "Stay close. Keep moving." Lena shouted, adrenaline flooding her limbs. They dashed past the twisted structures, eyes scanning the surrounding darkness. But every direction looked the same. Would they get lost forever amongst the trees? What if they returned to that cabin? Suddenly, a loud crash erupted behind them, snapping branches and scattering leaves. Lena spun around to see a shadow darting beyond the clearing, a figure emerging just for a second, then fading away. "Run!" She screamed, fear igniting every ounce of instinct in her body. The figure hadn't just disappeared, it was closing in. They raced through the darkness, but Lena could feel the weight of their fear dragging her down. As they stumbled forward, the voice whispered again, clearer now, "You can't run forever." Just then, a high-pitched scream cut through the night. Lena's heart plummeted. It wasn't Mia or Noah, but it sounded like someone she knew. "Who is that?" she gasped, breath hitching as the reality of their situation sank in. The children stopped, wide-eyed, their faces pale as they listened again. With stomachs twisted in a knot of dread, the echoes of the woods surrounded them. The shadows were closing in, alive with mocking laughter, eyes in the darkness training on their every move. Would they face whatever lurked in the woods, or would the night swallow them whole? The answer was creeping ever closer, as the laughter swelled around them, reverberating through the trees. They sprinted, feet pounding against the mossy ground, breath coming in shallow gasps as the world around them blurred into a swirl of shadow and noise. The gleeful voices twisted through the trees, slithering into her mind, igniting a desperate urge to escape their grasp. Lena pressed forward, clutching her children to her side, stumbling as her heart raced. "Mommy, I want to go home." Mia's voice broke through the cacophony, a cry rife with fear, sending a fresh wave of cold dread spilling through Lena's veins. "Just a little further," Lena urged, but every push she offered felt like words lost in the wind, swallowed by the night that loomed around them. They were running, yes, but from what? The shadows? Something more? A sickening chill shivered down her spine as the trees began to close in, eliminating the light and leaving them in a suffocating darkness. Then, from somewhere beyond the heavy fog, a different sound crept into her ears. A soft cooing, deceptively comforting against the ominous laughter that taunted them. "Look," Mommy Noah whispered, his eyes widening at a flicker of movement in the dark. Lena squinted, heart catching in her throat. A figure flickered just beyond a cluster of gnarled branches, its white dress shimmering in the pale light of the moon, illuminated just enough to reveal a gaunt face with hollow eyes. A child? Or something worse? "Keep moving," Lena hissed, yanking them away, but the figure lingered, twisting its head slowly, as if considering them. The laughter faded momentarily, replaced by silence thick enough to suffocate. The wood seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Then, without warning, the harmony of children's laughter erupted once more, echoing off the trees, strong and insistent. It felt like a command, wrapped in layers of sweetness that masked a sinister intent. "Play with us. Forever." The scream she'd heard earlier pierced through the haunting terms, resonating painfully within her skull. What playground called to them in the dark? What games awaited that carried the weight of eternity? "Mommy, I'm scared." Mia's fingers dug into Lena's arm, trembling slightly, the innocence of her youth stark against the mounting darkness. "I know, baby. Just trust me," Lena murmured, fighting against the panic swelling within her chest. They pressed on, every breath ragged, their laughter and cries mingling with the whispers of the trees. The trees loomed closer, branches clawing at them like desperate hands. The path ahead twisted, turning into an uncertain maze. Each turn led them deeper into despair as the forest shifted, almost playfully, hiding its true intent. "Look!" Noah shouted suddenly, pointing toward a faint, flickering light up ahead. It drifted, ethereal like a will-o'-the-wisp amid the dark. With this new hint of hope guiding her, Lena pushed forward, ignoring the way her instincts screamed for her to turn back. As they neared it, the light pulsed, revealing the outlines of a small cabin, dilapidated yet oddly inviting in its glow. A soft sigh of relief escaped Lena's lips. "It's a house. We can hide there," she exclaimed, but hesitation gripped her, tightening like a vice. Something felt off. The laughter had stilled again, replaced by a foreboding silence that coiled around her, laden with the stench of decay. Mommy Mia barely breathed, eyes wide and star-flecked with apprehension. Lena moved instinctively to shield her children, the sound of splintering wood grazing her ears as if from behind. "Go!" she urged, pushing them forward. As they neared the door, it swung open on creaking hinges, revealing a darkness that felt alive. Inside, shadows danced at the edges, flickering in the glow that still managed to escape the windows. "Is someone in there?" Noah whispered, trembling, a certain dread in his voice. I don't know, Lena replied, but all sense of resolve was crumbling. Then the laughter returned, louder and more frenzied. Come play with us. The voices begged, weaving through the air, intertwining with the tension. We've been waiting. The door drifted open further, as if inviting them. Inside. Lena's heart pounded, but a shiver crawled up her spine, warning her of the dangers awaiting beyond that threshold. What do we do? Mia whimpered, shaking. Stay close. Lena said fiercely, determination flooding her veins, even as fear gnawed at her soul. With one last glance back into the inky black woods that seemed to hold its breath, they stepped over the threshold. The moment they crossed into the cabin, the door slammed shut behind them, sealing their fate. If there was something worse in the woods, they would have to face it within these walls. And above the roar of laughter, her heart thudded against her ribcage. Were they safe? Or only being drawn deeper into the trap? As an unsettling whisper wove into her thoughts, promising truths better left undisturbed, the shadows began to shift, morphing and closing in on them, presiding over the dark secrets that awaited. The cabin roared around them, its walls breathing like a living beast. Lena's heart hammered in her chest as the door slammed shut, sealing their escape. Muffled laughter filled the air, playful yet rife with malice. The flickering light illuminated twisted furniture, broken mirrors, and dust-covered floors, all cast in an eerie glow that gave way to more shadows. Stay close, kids. Lena barked, forcing bravado into her voice. Mia clutched her hand tightly while Noah pressed his small frame against her side. They were trapped, and the walls seemed to close in on them as shadows writhed and twisted in mocking imitation of their fear. Mommy, what do they want? Noah's voice was a mere whisper, a raw edge of panic threading through his words. I have no idea, Lena replied, her throat dry and scratchy. But she had to find a way to keep them safe. She scanned the room, her mind racing, weighing their options. The laughter crescendoed, drowning out her thoughts. It felt like the cabin itself taunted her, its ghastly joy promising eternal games of fate worse than death. Suddenly, without warning, a figure emerged at the edge of the cabin's dim light. It flickered like a faulty bulb, humanoid yet distorted, eyes glinting in the gloom. Join us, play with us, it beckoned, voice intertwining with the laughter, slithering into her mind. Lena's breath caught in her throat. No! She shrieked, pulling her children closer, shielding them with her body. Stay away from us. The figure wavered, then dissolved into shadows. The walls rattled like thunder in response, shaking, tremors vibrating through the floors. Run! Lena shouted, pushing her kids toward a doorway that flickered on the far side of the room. Her will surged like a tidal wave, a desperate push against the darkness pursuing them. They raced through the corridor, the air thick with dread and despair. The shadows followed, relentless and hungry. Behind them, the laughter morphed into howling wails. Remnants of lost souls echoed through the cabin, growing louder. The sense of a past life consumed them, filling Lena with equal parts terror and determination. Mommy! Mia's voice broke through her concentration. The little girl's eyes were wide with fear as they reached another door, but they couldn't stop now. Without hesitation, Lena flung it open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with dusty objects, ghostly artifacts from long-forgotten lives. Look! Noah pointed as they hurried inside. A large mirror stood against one wall, its surface gleaming, pulling at Lena's gaze in a way that felt both familiar and terrifying. Don't look at it, she commanded, remembering how the last mirror had almost trapped them. They pivoted away, but the gravitational draw of the glass was undeniable. Whispers slithered out, weaving through the air, enticing, look, join us, forcing her will against the call. Lena scanned for a place to hide. A trapdoor lay at the far end of the room, half buried under old rugs. There! She pointed, leading the way. But as they moved, the mirror reflected fleeting images of twisted faces, tormented souls trapped within its glass. each expression twisted in a silent scream, pulling Lena tightly in. "Close your eyes," she shouted, but Mia couldn't tear her gaze away. They dashed for the door as Lena felt the walls grip tighter like hands around her throat. What lay below? "Mommy, I can't," Mia begged, her feet freezing where they stood. "Please trust me," Lena urged, tears prickling at her eyes. The laughter erupted behind them, swelling like a storm, and without thinking, Lena yanked the rug aside and opened the trapdoor, a rush of musty air flooding up. "Now!" she ordered, shoving her children down into the dark. She followed, heart racing as the heavy door clanged shut above them. For a moment, they were enveloped in darkness, and the laughter faded to a faint echo. The weight of silence was oppressive, the heavy air pressing down around them. "What now?" Noah whispered, trembling against Lena. "Let us move," Lena said, her voice steadying. She reached for the tire iron at her side, gathering courage as they crept through the musty darkness, fingers trailing along cold stone walls. As they ventured deeper, light began to blink like a frustrated star, illuminating a narrow corridor lined with images etched in decay. "What is this place?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It feels like some kind of tomb," Lena replied, heart racing. Walls wept memories, images of families lost to those woods, faces twisted in fear. She felt anger swell within her. These were the souls trapped by the cabin's seductive allure. For every laugh, there was a whispered cry of despair echoing back at her. A gust of wind swept through, chilling them to the bone. "Mommy, I want to go home," Mia cried, her little voice echoing against the stone walls. "We will," Lena vowed, determination flooding her as she pressed forward, leading them through the dimly flickering light. Up ahead, she spotted another door flanked by fading light. Could this be their way out? "Keep going," Lena urged, pushing through the memories of torment that clung to her like a suffocating fog. Just as they neared the door, a dark figure materialized before them, a grotesque shadow, laughing and howling. "Play with us, join us forever," it taunted, arms stretching outward, begging for their submission. Lena froze, her instincts screaming for retreat. Then she heard it, the wail of lost souls rising above the laughter. Images of the forest clawed at her memory, the pain etched into each echo. The truth came crashing in. To escape, they had to confront the puppet masters holding the strings. "Stand back," Lena shouted, gripping the iron tightly, channeling all her fears into a single point of resolve. "We will not play your games." She surged forward, heart pounding, feeling the weight of their fear pushing down upon her. "No!" the figure howled, reaching out, but Lena swiped the tire iron forward, feeling it connect. A wave crashed through the shadows, sending the figure dissipating into the dark, the laughter waning. The doorway swung open, and blinding light cascaded in. "We have to move now." Lena ushered her children forward, emerging into the soft glow of dawn. They clicked into motion, running across the expanse of the clearing, sunlight streaming through branches as whispers faded into the distance. They were out of the cabin, away from the forest, and yet the air felt heavy with echoes. Breathless and worn, Lena turned to her children, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We made it," she breathed, a tentative smile breaking through. "Mommy, can we go home?" Mia asked, gripping her hand tightly. "Yes," Lena affirmed, sweeping them into her arms. "We're going home. Together." As they walked away from the cabin, its presence faded like a final memory of a nightmare lost in the light of a new day. Somewhere deep within the woods, the laughter receded, the whispers extinguished. But they were free now. And with each step, safety drew closer, binding them with hope against the shadows of their past. So, if you're enjoying the story and want to get that adrenaline rush with more tales just like this, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button, it really feeds the algorithm, trust me. And let us hear your reactions. Flood the comments section below with your theories about the ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. This is your moment to show your support.